So hello and welcome to our end of summer update. It's been a couple of months since I managed to bring an update on how the railway's doing. So as we reach the end of the summer, now is the time. When we look back to the springtime, we faced rather a lot of uncertainty. You may recall that we're in a time when the cost of living crisis was uppermost in our mind, and we were unsure just how much traffic we would see this year. We were right to be concerned because the first couple of months of the season were really rather quiet, and our trains were not filling to the kind of level that we would hope, even with our careful management of the number of trains and how many people are on each train. However, I'm delighted to say that as the summer has gone on and as our marketing team have been incredibly active, often behind the scenes, because a lot of the stuff that's done online, on radio adverts and things like that, we don't get to see, but it is all happening there, and they're pushing away and seemingly very effectively too. So that has been working, and I have to say, not only are we in a position where in May, June, July and now August, we're going to be in a place where our sales figures for tickets on our trains will exceed budget. And that's a very good position to be in. Now, it's okay selling those tickets, but then we've got to deliver. And that's been pretty tough too, because in the beginning of the year, we had a lot of issues with the very, very dry weather indeed. We work in some very difficult terrain, and we had quite a number of issues with line-side fires, delaying our services and so on. So a tough time, very difficult for everybody that's involved. But having said that, our staff, our supporters have all delivered, all pulled together and worked very hard to deliver the Ffestiniog and Welsh Island Railways train service in 2023, and now we have the benefit of having some really good results thanks to their efforts. In the 1980s, when I first joined the Ffestiniog Railway, as it then was, one of the things that really grabbed me about the place was the buzz. There was such an intense service, there were lots of trains everywhere, lots of people and lots of things going on. Frankly, it was fantastic, and it really was part of what attracted me and many of the people around at the time to the Ffestiniog Railway. I know that during the COVID crisis and all that went with it, and with the changes in the business model that we've had to make, a lot of people have been really concerned that that buzz would no longer be there, that we were running a different kind of railway, maybe not one that's quite so exciting. Well, in 2023, the buzz is back. I invite any of you to go down to Harbour Station at lunchtime between 1 and 3 o'clock on a weekday, some of the weekends in the summer, and just watch the show that is the Ffestiniog and Welsh Island Railways train service of 2023. It really is fantastic. Trains everywhere, people everywhere. That buzz is well and truly back. So moving on then, I can't cover everything about the railway in every video, that's clear. It's a big railway, it's a busy railway, there are so many great things going on. I know that you're all kept up to date with the moving pictures editions that come out very frequently, and goodness me, how many people have viewed the latest ones talking about C2 and the NG15 and the Alco. It's just great to see how interested everybody is. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to focus on just two things now. One is locomotives, not surprisingly, because we've got a lot to say there. But the other is our winter programme. It's really important. The planning's underway right now. We've got a lot to say about it. So let's, in reverse order, look at the winter programme first, and then we'll come back to the bit to tell you all about our locos and what's happening in the next few months. Hello, and the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that this version 2 of this update is slightly different to version 1. The reason for that is that one of our long-time supporters, mae'r, pointed out in the first version of this video that I appeared to be stood on the track in perhaps a dangerous position when I was filming last time round. Well, just to explain how we ensure our safety when we're doing this work, you'll see I have in my hand, as usual, a token for this section of line. So this is Beth Gellert to Wedi. And because I'm in possession of this token, we know that no trains can come along this line at this point. Also, I'm wearing the high-vis jacket, which last time I forgot to do. Not wanting to create the wrong impression, thank you to mae'r for pointing that out, and here goes with version 2. So here we are on the Welsh Highland Railway at Canal Curve, and we are thinking about the winter programme and what work we've got to do this winter to keep the railway in good shape. Some years ago, when we were first running trains on the Welsh Island section from Dinas down to Carnarvon, we realised in the winter that the slipperiness of the railhead caused by sap from trees and the rain and leaves sticking to the track and stuff like that meant that the railhead conditions could get very slippery. And so we learnt that when working on such a steep railway, it is really important to keep the railhead in good condition, not only for traction for getting trains up the hill, but also very importantly for braking when we're going down the hill. So to that end, one year we had to employ contractors in the section between Dinas and Carnarvon. Cost us something like about £30,000 at the time, to clear away the trees to make sure there wasn't a canopy of trees forming over the track. And I shall explain why that's so important. When the rails are exposed to sunlight, as these ones are here at the moment, then if it rains or if you get sap from the trees landing on the railhead, the sunlight effectively dries it out and burns it off, and the passage of the trains keeps the rails in good condition. If, however, like in the section behind me, a canopy starts to form over the rails, then that sap, it can be droppings from insects, leaves and so on, lands on the rails and doesn't go away. It doesn't get burnt off, and rarely does the rain wash it off either. So over time the railhead just gets into a poorer and poorer state. It can get quite slippy. It's important that we don't let that happen, and we don't. But in order to do it, what we do is we make sure that we clear the trees that are overhanging the line. And so this winter we'll be putting an inordinate amount of effort into both the Welsh Highland and the Ffestiniog to make sure that the canopy is cleared, opened up, and that the track remains in good condition. So here's what happens. We're in a section underneath a pine tree here, and whereas just a little bit further down the railhead has already dried after the last shower, here the railhead is still wet. If I run my finger over it, I can just feel the film, the coating from the trees. But what will happen is that leaves land on here like that, and if it's wet they stick, and then the train passes over it and squashes this leaf. It doesn't go away, it stays there, and it just becomes more of a build-up on the railhead, and there's no rain to wash it off, protected by the trees, no sunlight to burn it off, and so this film builds up. So, as I say, what we do is we make sure we clear the canopy and make sure that light can get in and that it keeps the railhead in good condition. Every day at lunchtime there are 4 trains that arrive in the station at Harbour Station, and it's really great to see. It's got a real buzz about the place, and what we can also say is there's a lot of people around and all our facilities are getting pressed to the limit, shall we say. I'm being rather cautious where I stand here because it's an August lunchtime, and I suppose a lot of people would think it rather strange if I wandered over to show you the state of the loos in Porthmadog. But as part of this winter programme, it's absolutely essential that we invest in completely redoing the gents' loos. They've got to a pretty poor state, and because they are being used so much every day, we're having to put a lot of effort into trying to keep them clean. Just today, 3 new toilet seats and a deep clean required, and it seems it's almost a weekly occurrence that we're having to do something to them. So we have to spend some of our earnings from this year sorting out the loos, because they're a vital part of the infrastructure of a tourist attraction. Also on our list for our winter programme is Harbour Station Water Tower behind me. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm really furious about this. This tank is only 40 years old. We've never done any maintenance on it, and it's leaking. Who would have thought it? And I have to say that just a couple of years ago, part of the plain plain sheet steel in the side of the tank started to leak, and I popped up to have a look, and I want to say I stuck a bit of gum over the hole on the inside. It's been there ever since, but the time has come when Porthmadog water tank must be replaced. So the intention is to do a like-for-like replacement. So Brunswick Ironworks are just sorting out arrangements for that at the moment. They're going to make a new tank off-site, and then it will be a straightforward, hopefully, swap, take the old one away and put a new one in. But you can imagine, can't you, just how vital this piece of infrastructure is to our services day in, day out. It's just got to work, and we've got no choice but to change it and keep it in good condition. Before COVID affected us, we'd got fairly grand plans for Ffestiniog station, working in partnership with both the Welsh Government and Transport for Wales. There was something just over £1 million sitting in a budget for Ffestiniog before COVID, and our hope was that we'd be able to put some of our money towards it too and create a new station at Ffestiniog, or certainly a heavily overhauled one. But COVID came and went. That kind of funding is now long gone, and so we've been holding off on doing any developments and any maintenance at the station because we thought we were going to replace it or do a big overhaul job. With that now not being possible, we simply have to turn our attention to Ffestiniog station. You know, it's one of the principal stations on the railway, it's our gateway, it's our face to the public. It's really important that it looks good, and frankly, at the moment, it doesn't. So we've formulated a plan working with the Ffestiniog Railway Society to do some work on the station that will bring it back up to scratch. This winter, we hope to start by replacing the drains underneath the platform surface itself, and the platform edgings, all of which have now started to deteriorate. So the drains are poor, the platform surfaces, particularly where there are paviours, are sinking, and the platform edging is slumping in towards the track, such that sometimes the locomotives and rolling stock are touching the edges, which is not a good thing. So phase one this winter will be to try and sort that out. Hopefully the year after that we'll then tackle the canopy and the drains that come down from the canopy roof. No point doing those yet, we need to sort out the drains under the ground first. So hopefully next winter the canopy, and the winter after that, hopefully we can have a look at the building on the site. We're still using a porter cabin, or a steel container rather. And we've done a lot of work on that to make it look presentable, but at the end of the day, I think we all know that we'd rather see a more traditionally built structure in place there. So expect a number of changes. I'm also hoping that arrangements where people cross the track near the water tower can be updated and made safer. So each year we get the opportunity to meet visitors from all around the world who make their way over to us to see the Ffestiniog and Welsh Island railways. And this year we were absolutely delighted to meet Daryl, or Dazza, as he liked to be called, from the Mae Valley Rattler over in Australia. I'd never heard of the Mae Valley Rattler until Daryl turned up, but we now know all about it. He was trying to work out if he could pick up a few hints and tips on how to run a railway, and came to see what we could share with him. And we looked at the photographs of his railway, we talked to him a little bit, and we immediately worked out that the problem with the Mae Valley Rattler is that the loco crews don't drink enough tea. In fact, on the entire railway there is only one billy can, and that belongs to Daryl. So to the other footplate crew and the team at the Mae Valley Rattler, you're all very welcome to come and join us next year, where we'll give you an introduction as to how to operate a teapot, as well as how to run steam engines. So we'll see you here next year. "30 years ago, if we'd told you that the Ffestiniog Railway would have a replica of Taliesin and a Linton and Barnstable engine in their fleet, we would hardly have believed it, would we? But they're here, and we see them every day, and we take them for granted now, I suppose. 10 years ago, if I said to you that the names Welsh Pony and James Spooner would once again appear on our loco roster, that too would have seemed a little fanciful. But here we are with your first sneak peek of James Spooner, now in the painting shop with the first layer of paint all in place, the Victorian plum livery, the same as Welsh Pony. And the next job for this is for it to be flattened off and for the lining to be put in place, ready for its cameo appearance at the Bygones weekend. Now, I say a cameo appearance because the plan is, assuming that everything goes well, and there's always a bit of a risk there with steam engines that something could go wrong, but assuming everything goes well, then this locomotive should appear at Harbour Station, perhaps moving a few wagons, perhaps on positioning moves over the Bygones weekend. So you'll get your first opportunity to get up close with James Spooner and to get some photographs of it. It won't be hauling any passenger trains on that weekend though. We're waiting until after we've launched the locomotive, named it, and given a chance for the volunteers, staff and supporters who've worked on the locomotive to have had their go first. I'm sure you'll understand how important that is when we've achieved such a huge milestone as building a new double fairley. So there we go, James Spooner, your first sneak peek, no lining yet, come at Bygones weekend and you'll be amongst the first to see it. No update on locomotives at the moment would be complete without a mention of DLG. You know, last October, we took the tough decision of taking that locomotive out of traffic and doing its 10-year boiler overhaul early. I know you saw the videos with me explaining the need to do that. But our team, working closely with the chaps at Israel Newton, did an absolutely wonderful job of turning that locomotive round in just 7 months. And since then, it's been in service practically every day in the high summer service on the Ffestiniog Railway, delivering the goods again and again. So once again, I just say thank you to everybody who has helped us get that locomotive back into traffic at the beginning of this year, you wouldn't have thought this summer we would have so many locomotive updates to bring you. I mean, I never would have thought for the life of me that we'd be telling you about 3 new locomotives that have joined our fleet this summer. But here's the story. So I'm standing on this wonderful Hunslet diesel locomotive, which belonged to Adrian Shooter and was the resident shunter at the Beaches Light Railway. As we all know, Adrian passed away very sadly back in December of last year, and on June the 21st there was an auction at the Beaches Light Railway where all of the attention was of course on the Darjeeling and Himalayan Railway locomotive, but there were many other items of rolling stock that were sold at the auction at the same time. We were fortunate enough to successfully bid for this Hunslet shunting loco, which is in the finest of health actually. It was acquired by Adrian and overhauled by Alan Keefe, Patrick Keefe, at their workshops not so many years ago, and it's seen very little use since then. So why do we need it at the Ffestiniog Railway? Well, for the time being, it's going to be a replacement for mae'r. Mae'r is the locomotive that's generally used by the S&T team when they need to move things around the railway. But mae'r is becoming rather tired and needs rather a lot of TLC actually. So rather than keep expecting it to do the lion's share of the S&T work, we've taken that out of the infrastructure fleet now. It's in the heritage diesel collection, and hopefully it will get looked after and a gentle retirement so we can still enjoy it, but it gets well looked after. Anyway, this one joins us. Mae'r will be its Welsh name. Nameplate's on the way very shortly, and we'll see it in use pretty much straight away. It's ready to go as an air braked locomotive, just as mae'r is, and so you'll see this out this winter working for the S&T team. Over time we may upgrade it and add vacuum braking and a few other nice to have bits and pieces, but because it joined our fleet at very short notice, then we have little time to work on it just at the moment. So there we go, the first of 3 new locomotives that joined us this summer. So, as you all know from previous updates, we are really interested to dip our toes in the water with electric locomotives. I don't need to go on and explain the reasons why, but wouldn't it be great if we could have electric locomotives being used for our shunting and works train duties? Last year, Carwyn managed to convert the Wickham trolley into an electrically powered vehicle, and we learnt a few things along the way, and we've been thinking about what comes next. Thanks to our members and supporters network, and boy does that come in handy day after day after day, there's always some help coming from our members and supporters, but thanks to that network we were alerted to the fact that a couple of electric locomotives were coming out of the Tideway Tunnel project in London and would be available to purchase. Now this was quite an exciting thing in that we were told one week that there were 2 20-ton locomotives likely to become available, and we had but 3 days to say whether we wanted them or not. Regrettably, we weren't able to react quite quickly enough because we didn't know enough about the locomotives, where they were or how to deal with them. So then we found that the following week 2 14-ton locomotives were becoming available. So, and here they are. Now, with these locomotives, 14 tons is a bit more of a useful size for the Ffestiniog and Welsh Highland railways. Why? Because our axle loading limit is about 7 tons, and so a 14-ton engine that's an 040 meets with that axle loading, so that's quite handy. So we were told that the tunnelling contractors locomotives, 10 years old, electrically powered, were being taken up the shaft from the tideway tunnel, and they would be then sent to the scrapyard in about 3 days' time if we were not interested in them. So we had to make a very quick decision indeed. Were we interested in these locomotives? So we decided that we would take, I guess, a bit of a gamble. And we put our money forward, and for the princely sum of just £12,000, that's the scrap value plus transportation, we acquired these 2 locomotives. They were driven to the bottom of the shaft to be taken up and taken away. So they were operational just 2 weeks ago. And now here they are sat at Boston Lodge. As you look at them now, you can see there's something missing in the middle, and that's the battery packs. So what have we got then? Well, we've got 2 locomotives, 6 of the battery packs that go with them, and 4 chargers, plus a couple of spare wheel sets and a number of other small spares which are yet to arrive with us. So here we are. We didn't know just 3 or 4 weeks ago that we would be acquiring some electric locomotives. It is a little bit of a gamble, but it's at such a price where we just couldn't miss out on this opportunity. So we're going to work away at these to see if we can convert them into Ffestiniog and Welsh Highland Railway shunters. So watch this page. One thing that you will notice is they're not on the track. And the reason for this is at the moment they're 750mm gauge. Now you may say, what use of that is that to us? But however, they are re-gaugeable locomotives. So although it's not as simple as snapping our fingers, it is very easy to take the wheel sets and push them in to their other gauge, which is 610mm. And we think with a bit of extra tweaking, we can get that down to the 600mm gauge that we need. So we've got a little bit of work to do on that, and we'll be starting on that in the next few weeks. Personally, I hope that we'll be able to plug these in at Boston Lodge and Dinas so they can trickle charge, hopefully in part from the solar panels, and be available to go at a moment's notice. Rather than starting up a diesel engine and waiting for 10 minutes for it to make compressed air, doing a short shunt and then switching it off again, and all the loss of heat and that goes with that, wouldn't it be great if we could just jump in, switch on the electric locomotive, which has already got its compressed air charged up from the trickle supply, and off we go. So I'm hoping that these locomotives will be able to do that job. But we need the support of our volunteer community, all those engineers that help us to get them into a shape where we can use them, and to sort out all the charging arrangements so that that works well for us too. So watch this space, but the Ffestiniog Railways, Ffestiniog and Welsh Highland Railways, 2 electric locomotives here now, but needing a bit of work to get into the right place. This is the boiler from Taliesin, and regrettably for a couple of years now, Taliesin hasn't been at the front of the queue for locomotive overhauls, but we certainly haven't lost sight of it and are eager to see it in traffic once more. The volunteer team that look after Taliesin did some work a couple of years ago, and now we're in a situation where the work staff are working on restaying the boiler. And although you wouldn't know from what you're looking at here right now, it's actually part way done. So these stays, here, here, and here, have already been replaced. Interestingly, they're the ones with the least weld around them. Now, with those rows of stays replaced, the next job will be to drill out these rows of stays, which are still old stays, clean out the holes, pop in new stays, and replace them. So rather than taking all the stays out at once, what happens is we take half of them out, replace those, then we take the other half out and do those. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll have a boiler that's been restayed, we'll get some tubes back in it, and we'll head towards that all-important hydraulic test. Can't say at the moment when the locomotive will be ready. Don't expect it anytime soon. It's a slow burn project, and once the boiler's done, we've also got all the work to do on the power unit, which needs a major overhaul. It's first one actually for a very long time. So no coverage of the loco fleet would be complete without mention of this wonderful locomotive, Linda. Now, Linda has had her boiler overhauled during COVID, and that was completed quite some time ago, so it's had its hydraulic test. Although it will be retested just immediately prior to going into service so that we get the maximum out of the 10-year ticket. We worked on Linda towards the end of last year and over part of the winter while DLG was away. But as soon as DLG returned, we had to take Linda and pop her in storage in the old engine shed while we concentrated on other things. And now with James Spooner in the paint shop, DLG in traffic, there's space in here for Linda to complete her overhaul. So a couple of things here. The chassis has been pretty much completed, and although it doesn't look beautiful, the reason for that is it's simply covered in wax oil to protect it whilst it's been in storage. The next thing will be to then get the tank and cab back on and start plumbing it all up. So that'll be happening in the next few weeks. But ahead of that, what we do need to do is sort out the tender. And the tender needed quite a lot of work doing on it, most of which has been done, but we decided that we would put a new coal bunker and water tank inside the body of the old tender. So the engine will look pretty much as it did before it went out of service, but it will have a good solid new water tank and coal bunker. And we'll just have a quick look at that. So this is the new insert for the tender, and what you can see here is there's well, it's upended at the moment, but this is where the tool space will be at the back of the tender. This is the coal space. The doors will just go in that gap there. And then underneath this, so that's the bottom of the coal space there, but in this area here is the tender water tank. I know that everybody always wants to ask these important questions as well, so just to touch on these. Linda will be outshopped in green once more, so we're keeping Linda and Blanche in their green liveries for the time being. The paint actually on Linda doesn't need redoing, it will just be repaired and revarnished this time round. Also, in terms of timing, we hope to see the engine in steam by around Christmas time and tested so that it's ready for next season. Okay, so one of the very important parts of Linda that we have to consider is the cylinders. These are the original cylinders, and when Linda and Blanche came here in the 60s, you may recall that Blanche had a new set of cylinders, piston valve cylinders. Another pair were made for Linda at the same time, but were flawed, faulty, and so have never been fitted. So Linda's cylinders have been bored out again and again, and now they are worn out and beyond reboring. We couldn't even bore them again to put a liner in them. They're just not thick enough. And so I'm delighted to say that once again, thanks to our members and supporters, we have funding to make new patterns for new cylinders, and we'll be casting them hopefully in about 6 months' time. So they won't go on this time round. We've managed to just about give these another lease of life. So these will last another 5 to possibly 10 years, by which time we'll be ready to fit the new ones, which will have been cast and machined in readiness for the next overhaul. And of course the question that everybody asks is, so we're replacing the cylinders, is that going to be with piston valve ones or with slide valve ones? And the answer is slide valve cylinders. Why? Because I think we all feel that Linda has a particular character derived from having these slide valve cylinders, and it's something that we'd like to see going on into the future. So if you want to try the piston valve version, you go for a drive on Blanche, and if you want to try the slide valve version, then you can go for a ride on Linda. And no doubt, for many decades to come, there will be debates in hostelries around Porthmadog about which is the best. I know which I prefer. In conclusion for this update, I'd just like to say a couple of things. Firstly, over the course of the summer, lots of people have come to me and thanked me for these video updates. It's quite humbling really, and it's really a pleasure to bring them to you. So thank you for saying thank you, really is appreciated. Secondly, I'd like to say thank you to all our staff, volunteers, members and supporters, without whom none of this could ever happen. And you know, our railway really is in good shape. There's a lot of people travelling on our trains. They like our services. They like the show that we put on. We can't afford to relax and we've got to make it better again next year. But in essence, we are in a good position and we can all be very pleased and proud about that. Finally though, I'd like to ask for your help in sharing our railway with other people. We need new members, we need new volunteers, new supporters and new members of staff. To help us with that, we've created these brochures. I've mentioned them before. It's called This Is Our Railway, available both in Welsh and in English. These are targeted at people who have taken an interest in our railway and when you want to give them a little bit more information. So they're available at Harbour Station, on the trains. There's even packets with them on the locomotives. So I ask all our team members really that if they get someone who's interested, please make sure they walk away with one of these brochures in their hand, personally given to them by you, because we know that's the best way to encourage new people to join in and get involved.